Very good. And my screen's still showing up, correct?
Yep. Yes.
Okay, okay. For those who have joined us, I posted a link in chat. I encourage you to grab that link and save it. These are the materials that we will be talking about today. One of the takeaways you get to take away from this webinar are those free resources. They're available for you to use. So definitely save that link. Post it again because I know someone jumped on just as I started talking about it, but I encourage you to save the link that I have in chat. Those are the resources that we will be sharing with you today, and they are free for you to use in your own work. Top of the hour, but I'll just wait just a minute. That link that Molly just posted in chat, I encourage you to save that. That is a link to the resources that we will be sharing with you today. These are materials that are available for you to use to teach your colleagues about ageism and reframing aging. For those who've just jumped on, I posted a link in chat. Those are the resources that we will be sharing with you today. They are free for you to use with your colleagues. They're designed to provide some education about aging and ageism. But I think we're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to start with, get on the right button. We're going to start with introductions. My name is Lacey Brown. I am a gerontology field specialist located in Rapid City, South Dakota. So I'm with South Dakota State University. And then my colleague, Sarah, I'll allow her to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Ritchie, and I am a program manager with Lifespan Programs at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in the Division of Extension. Welcome.
We are glad to have you here. So the North Central Region Aging Network is a group of extension professionals, primarily in the North Central region, but we have expanded our reach to other states. So we do welcome anybody from any state who focuses on education and outreach for older adults and their families to consider joining our network. The QR code on the screen will take you to our website. So We began collaborating in 2017, maybe it was 16, and we've been together ever since doing a variety of work. We have this online toolkit that lists a bunch of different programs that are available for you to use in your state. So that's who we are. That's who is sponsoring this webinar. We offer webinars, not every month, but many months throughout the year. We do offer webinars. You can use this QR code or go to ncran.org and subscribe to our webinars, and you will get notified. Although I assume many of you are already on this because you're here today, but maybe your colleague sent this to you and now you want to get notified directly. Use this QR code. So our learning objectives for today, we're going to discuss ageism in America. We're going to explore the concept of reframing aging and its relevance to cooperative extension. We will develop effective communication strategies to challenge ageism and its negative effects. We're going to gain practical tools and resources to integrate reframing aging into your professional work. So what is ageism? I'm going to highlight this link that Molly put in chat before I talk about ageism real quick. That is a link to the resources that we are sharing with you today. I encourage you to save that link so you can access it later. These resources are free for you to be able to use in your state to provide education to your colleagues. So typically, ageism is discrimination or prejudice against someone based solely on their age. People of all ages experience ageism, but today we're really focused on that ageism that older adults experience. So how many people have seen this graphic on the screen before? Anybody? Anybody? What it really highlights is some of the negative things that people associated with advancing age. And typically those beliefs about aging overall tend to be negative, tend to highlight the decline. And that's what people tend to think about. And it has consequences in a variety of ways. So how does ageism impact us? And how is this relevant to extension? So why should extension professionals care about ageism? So what we know is that there's virtually no good outcome of ageism. People who experience ageism have poor physical and mental health outcomes. They're more lonely and isolated. They internalize those negative stereotypes about aging. And stereotype embodiment theory teaches us that, those negative stereotypes tend to affect our health and well-being over time. So that internalized. So it's not just the external ageism that we target at others, it's how we talk to ourselves. Self-esteem is reduced. It's hard to find employment. And shockingly, age 50 is when people tend to start struggling to find employment. Quality of life decreases. There's higher rates of poverty, more healthcare costs, and even premature death. All this from ageism. How common is ageism? Many adults say they experience ageism in their everyday lives. That number on the left, that 82%, is the number of people who've experienced one or more forms of ageism. And this graphic shows you 3 different types. So that might be that ageist messaging. I've fallen and I can't get up. That messaging tends to be a little bit ageist. Ageism and interpersonal interactions. Internalized ageism. I talked about that one. So does this surprise anybody? What we see on the screen? Your faces are over there, so feel free to unmute. Does this surprise anybody?
No, it really doesn't, because I think for some individuals, we can think about through all ages. But I think our society, it just doesn't surprise me that it's that high.
Heartening, yeah. No surprise, no. Yep. So, and I think that's why you're all here today, because you know that ageism exists. So, but what the good news is while ageism does exist, there is evidence on how do we address ageism. Stereotype awareness training. I didn't spend a lot of time discussing the types of stereotypes because I want to focus on the communication. But helping people understand that adults viewing older adults as, cognitively impaired, that's a stereotype and doesn't really back what we know about science. So doing that stereotype awareness training can help dispel some of those negative attitudes and beliefs about aging. Providing intergenerational contact, and this goes for both, helping dispel stereotypes about younger people and older people, because the part of the problem is generations are separated. So they end up developing these attitudes and beliefs about each other. When they're together, they're able to see each other in a more realistic light and they have better outcomes. So, including diverse representations of older people in the media. Sometimes I think it's gotten better, but at one point, all the messaging that you saw in the media was really focused on the decline. The super agers, they like to focus on the super agers or the declining. So provide education about adult development and aging. The sad reality is most adults never receive any sort of education about what is normal with adult development and aging. So teaching people about that. And then finally, reframing communication about aging in older adults. Language is a powerful tool that affects how we perceive and understand the world around us. Um, so, oops. In 2022, 17 extension professionals from 6 states took the core elements of reframing aging training provided by the Gerontological Society of America. That training really was a valuable experience that provided some of that foundational knowledge of how to communicate differently about aging. So this training, we have used it in a variety of ways. We have adjusted our written and oral communication. We've revised program descriptions, scripts, and curriculum. We've refreshed our elevator speeches. We speak differently about aging. Adjusted language used to market programs. Revised evaluation tools. Provided internal and external workshops. Hosted webinars and developed fact sheets. The fact sheets are what we really want to share with you today. Molly has posted the links to those fact sheets in chat. And part of the reason we felt these fact sheets would be valuable is because the one thing that we felt was missing from the Reframing Aging training was that facts on aging. So our first fact sheet really is focused on what is aging. And when you leave here today, we're hoping you have these tools so you can take them and use them with your colleagues, maybe use them with a new hire. You could potentially offer a training. And how I'm going to demonstrate briefly here how you might use this training. So the first fact sheet is what is aging. So do I have a volunteer that would be willing to read the text in the blue box?
I'll read. This
Thank
is
you,
Anita.
Anita.
Sure. Can you hear me okay? My volume
do.
all right? Okay. Aging simply refers to changes that occur in the human body over time. Example, sensory decline, decline in muscle mass, slower reaction time. While age-related changes increase the risk of developing chronic diseases are not considered normal aging, nor is chronic disease and decline the whole story of advancing age. In addition, some declines or losses associated with aging may be the byproduct of civilization. For example, severe hearing loss in older adults may be related to lifelong exposure to the noisy environment of the modern world, concert attendance, machinery use, etc. Positive changes may also occur with increasing age. More life experience can lead to greater knowledge or crystallized intelligence and greater interpersonal competence, which can foster enhanced mental and emotional maturity. Example, wisdom. Unfortunately, these gains receive little attention, leaving the average adult to believe there is nothing good about getting older.
Thank you, Anita. So that's an example of how you might use this. There are two versions. If you've clicked on the link, you may see there's two versions of this fact sheet. There's this version that is simply just text to read, And the second version has a question, and I'm going to have the group respond briefly to this question, or one person. Think of a person who is aging well. How would you describe them? Is health always associated with age? And the prompt says write or draw. So does someone have an example of a person who's aging well that they might share with the group? Betty White pops to my mind. Betty White is a star example. She seemed like she was aging well.
Can you repeat that? Who was that, did you say?
Betty White.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you.
I have an example. I went to a retirement party yesterday for our FCS director, and one of our retired educators was there, and she was absolutely glowing. And it's just very, very, very happy, and like the smile could not leave her face. And so, I walked up to her and talked to her a little bit, and she's still very, very active, but the biggest thing is that she has found new love in later life. So she's got a new relationship. She just got married. And it just really just showed through everything about her.
Absolutely. That's a wonderful example. So the way you would use this worksheet is to have a facilitated discussion, with those discussion prompts. So this is the first worksheet. We're not going to go through the whole thing today because we're going to focus on communication strategies, but we do feel that facts on aging content is valuable. And this document really goes through what factors influence how a person experiences aging. The fact sheet, the link to the fact sheets is in chat. Please grab it and save it. The next one is addressing ageism. So even though everyone is aging, when is a person considered old? How is aging viewed today? Why is it that if a person lives to old age, they are sure to experience ageism? What can be done about it? Let's get started. Can I have a volunteer to read the plus sign box?
I can.
Thanks, Tessa.
Older adults are often categorized by age as those 65 and older or the 65 plus group. This may have started based on 65 as the age of a person became eligible to receive Social Security and what was traditionally seen as retirement age. The reality is the plus sign represents at least two generations. Does a 10-year-old have the same needs or interest as a 40-year-old? How about the 60 and 90-year-old? Both examples represent a 30-year span between the generations. Grouping aging adults together lends itself to generalization or stereotyping, which can lead to ageism.
Thanks, Tessa. So this worksheet talks about ageism in different contexts, the workplace, the media. So it's another tool to help people learn about ageism in our society. And then I'm going to go to our next one is how to communicate about aging. This is what we're really going to break down, and Sarah's going to take over here in a second. And she's going to really go into details about the different tips. But I'd love to have a volunteer to read that first paragraph on the screen for me.
I can, Lacey.
Okay, Molly.
Many individuals and organizations are focused on serving older adults and their families, engaging in an array of written and oral communication. Whether preparing grants, writing reports, developing educational programs, producing marketing materials, or conferring with older adults and their families, the language used often influences mental images about a particular issue or topic. Using certain language can tap into existing attitudes and beliefs, which often portray older adults negatively. Shifting language that encourages creative thinking and problem solving portrays older adults in a more holistic way.
Thank you, Molly.
Mhm.
So I really encourage you to save that link that Molly has put in chat. I encourage you to look at the reflection worksheet and maybe go through it. But today we're going to introduce the different tips to you, and then we're going to give you a chance to practice reframing. So at this point, I am going to turn it over to Sarah. And Sarah, tell me when to change slides.
Right. So as Lacey mentioned, we're going to dig in a little bit to some of the communication strategies that are recommended to minimize ageism in our language and in the way we communicate about aging. So I'm going to be going over labeling, othering, elder speak, using crisis language, and positive aging imagery. First, so if you want to go to the next slide, there we go. First, I'm just going to talk about some terms that we use to identify people who are age 60 or 65 and older. This graphic and this study are from 2017. So Frameworks researchers ran an online experiment that studied people's associations with a variety of terms currently used by experts in the aging field, as well as health and human services, that people that work with aging people. In one stage of the experiment, participants were provided with one of 5 terms for older people. So that was older person, older adult, senior citizen, and elder. And then they were asked to rate them on a 5-point scale across a number of competence-related adjectives. So like thinking technology capable, frail, independent, wise. So these were averaged to create an overall measure of perceived competence, resulting in this analysis that reveals a clear continuum of competence associated with different labels. So as you can see on this graphic, the term senior is seen as less competent than the term older adult. And then you can see where the other terms, elder, senior citizen, and older person. So as you move up, they perceive more competence using those terms. So then another part of the experiment gave people one of these labels and asked them to indicate how old they thought a person was. So these responses are also noted here on the slide. So senior, people think is somebody who's about 69 years old. Elder, same. Senior citizen, 68. Older person, 64. And older adult at 54. So the preferred term or the recommended term for people to use is really older person, because as you see, when we talk about older people, we're really, a lot of our programs are thinking about people who are 60 or 65 and older. And that older adult term is really people seem to think that it refers to people who are just a little bit younger. So labeling matters, and how we talk about people matters. So when we think about labeling, that's categorizing somebody by a specific trait or behavior, typically negative. So elderly, senior citizen, boomer, we hear a lot lately, I guess. So we want to think about using gradable objectives. So using older person, or that's an older volunteer. We want to avoid those senior citizen or other euphemisms, just like they're seasoned. Elder, we want to think about elder sometimes in a cultural context, because we recognize that some cultures use elder as a form of, or a term of respect. And so there might be situations where the term elder is appropriate. And if you aren't sure, just ask. I think that's also important to know, is it's okay to ask questions. And then we can go on to othering. So othering is language that isolates people as a separate group. And this we use when we're thinking of like those people, like that is not us. It's not going to be us, when the reality is we are all aging. That is going to be us. So as people get older, they're just more likely to have chronic conditions, or aging people need services and support, when really we should say, as we age, we will all need services and support. So we want to avoid using they or them, and use we or us instead when we're talking about older people and changing the environment, or thinking about the things that we all are going to need as we age. So that's othering. The next one I'll go over is elder speak. And this I think we see happen a lot in clinical settings, maybe residential living situations, but elder speak is a style of speech which is similar to baby talk, and it's rooted in stereotypes that older adults are incompetent. Elder speak leads to negative outlooks on aging or people seeing themselves negatively. So we want to avoid using elder speak as much as we can, or really at any time. And I think when I think about elder speak, it's using some of that like sing song tone in your voice, or like an example might be like, oh, come here, sweetie, let's take your medicine, or oh, it's time to eat. We wouldn't talk to our colleague or, maybe somebody our same age like that. So we shouldn't talk to older people like that either. So here are just some features: short sentences, using simple vocabulary, slow and loud speech. I think sometimes that one for me even is like really hard not to do. And I don't know why. I think it's just like ingrained in us that we just need to talk slower or louder to older people. And that's not, it's not true. Inappropriate plural nouns. I said using honey. I think those are some examples of what elder speak might look like. And then the next one is crisis language. So we've all, I think, probably done this where we've, aging was referred to as like, oh, the silver tsunami is coming. Our country is aging. Our state is aging. It's the age wave. I think we've used in presentations like a decade ago. So trying to avoid that. And it makes it difficult to identify a solution and a challenge when you're looking at something with like this frame of this terrible thing is going to happen. It's going to be such a burden on our community. We're going to really struggle. We want to be thinking about the strengths of our older people and as us as we age, and how we can contribute to things and think about solutions in more of a positive light than just thinking about the decline and framing it in a negative way. And then using positive imagery. And this is something that we all can do very easily. So we want to avoid using positive images that counter negative stereotypes about aging. So I think this is thinking about the super agers. So those pictures of people that are in their 70s that are climbing mountains or running marathons. Not everyone that ages looks like that. So we want to be using pictures that are in the workplace or getting together in a social group, just using pictures of like normal people things, not these things that not everybody can accomplish. Authentic images of older people engaging in everyday activities, similar to what I just mentioned. They have a positive impact on the views of aging. And actually, recent studies have shown that images of older adults in the workplace have the most positive impact on attitudes about aging. And then this last one, images that show people confidently using technology can dispel negative stereotypes around digital literacy. And I think this one is especially important because I hear it with my community partners too, like, oh, older people can't use technology. They're not going to know how to get on a Zoom. They don't know how to use their smartphones. That's not true of, I think, the general population. So I think when we use those types of images of older people using technology, it can give, it's just more positive, takes away some of that negative stereotypes around them not being tech savvy. So we'll quick just do a little review over our communication strategies. So we want to avoid labeling that implies that older people are weak or frail or less than because of their age. We want to use gradable adjectives. So like using the term older volunteer, older participant, older people. We want to use elder in an appropriate cultural or spiritual context. So again, if you don't know if that term is okay with the group that you're working with, just ask. Avoid othering, so using they, not using they or them, and using us or we instead. Using inclusive language, like I just mentioned, us and we. Avoiding elder speak, and avoiding crisis language, as I just recently went over on the last slide, and then avoiding avoid using positive aging images that like make older people look like they all should be able to do these huge athletic feats like climbing mountains or running marathons. So just using everyday images of older people engaging in normal activities. We're going to do some practice next, and it looks like we have plenty of time. I think we're kind of cruising through this. So maybe I'll stop. Are there any questions about any of the communication strategies? Do any of you currently use any of these communication strategies with the intention of reducing ageism in your work?
Feel free to unmute and talk.
I do try to be careful with the photos that we use with extension publications to make sure that they're, like you mentioned, not stereotyping, but at the same time, not looking overly positive, right? We want to just have pictures of people and ordinary activities, maybe walking, but not running a marathon. So keeping things realistic and relatable is something that we try to do.
That relatable word, I think, is key.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't even mention like the opposite end of that. I think when I'm searching for images for things that we are doing here in Wisconsin, it is always frail or sad. Like people are always looking really sad, or they're looking out the window, looking depressed and lonely. I kind of forgot to mention like avoiding that too, but I think it's hard when we're searching for images to find images that maybe don't go to like either end of that spectrum.
Katie, that's a great tip. And
Oh,
COA
yep.
has a photo gallery of adults aging well. That's a great tip.
Yeah, thanks, Katie.
Finding
Anybody
images.
else use any of these strategies deliberately in their work currently?
This is Molly. I surely do and have been aware of ageism, and I was one of the 17. Tessa, my colleague, also, we were with you in that training in 22. But what this has done for me, as far as being more aware, even more aware than I was, it points out when there are issues more easily for me. When my father was sick, he died at 83. When he was sick, I couldn't stand if someone from the health profession came into his room and said, "Hello, young man," and when he was clearly a frail 83, 82-year-old man, it just pointed out sometimes some of the, albeit potentially kind gestures made by people that are also hidden potential for ageism, that kind of thing. Some people are very benevolent and kind in their approach, and they feel like they're doing the right thing when in fact it might not be.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for sharing that, Molly. I think too, a lot of times we're very just unaware because ageism is ingrained in us from a young age, or aging stereotypes, I should say. Even thinking about children's books, when I look at some of the books that I read to my kids, grandmas are using canes, or they are, really. Yeah. So I think sometimes we just are unaware. And I've noticed when we do this programming with community audiences, some people are, I was at a statewide conference, and the woman who created actually the Everyday Ageism Scale, Julia Ober-Allen, she was speaking, and people were like laughing, and they were identifying with like, oh yeah, we do that. Or it's like the senior moment, or you're reading the card that is very ageist because you turned 60 or something, you're like over the hill, or everything is black. And so it's just so ingrained in our society. A lot of times we just don't even recognize when we're doing it. But when we learn, it's a lot easier to notice and stop ourselves from doing it. So that's why I think some of this education is so important to use and to model.
And Sarah, sorry,
go ahead, Tessa. Go, Tessa. No, you go.
Something you said and had talked about earlier, the 100 days at school, I find that always to be a pet peeve of mine now.
Mhm.
I know it's very interesting. The kids get really excited. They love the dress up part. But again, that little message that we're constantly sending to individuals. Um, I was reviewing some old papers because I'm a saver. And I loved when they had grandparent day and my kids would draw a picture of their grandparents or whatever else. And they were delightful. I was reminded, though, how beautiful that relationship was and how important that relationship was to me. You know, there's so many other things that they can do. And I think, again, through that training that we all attended, just kind of promoting that with schools and saying something else that they can be doing. I think, again, um, again, those little stereotypes that we constantly are sending and something so simple as that.
Well, I
Yeah.
believe Reframing Aging has made a toolkit for the 100 days to offer different activities for
Yes.
schools to do. I believe Reframing Aging has done that because it is, it seemed harmless, but the messages typically conveyed to those young people are that aging is decline.
Mhm.
And aging is much more nuanced than just decline. Um, those fact sheets, I really encourage you to read them because it talks about like culture. Culture, it's a comment I wanted to make. Culture is huge for aging. Our culture provides the lens through which we understand advancing age. Some cultures view aging more negatively than others, and that's
Mhm.
critical. American culture largely is negative, but other cultures are different.
Yeah.
Are you ready to move on,
Yeah.
Sarah? Okay, let's
Yeah.
practice.
Yep. Yeah. It's practice time.
So get some
So if
paper.
you want to get out oh, wait, I think, yep, here we are. Sorry, I had another screen up. If you want to get out a piece of paper or open a Word document or whatever works for you to sort of jot down and try to reframe these three, we'll give you a few minutes. Get done what you can, but try to reframe these statements. We'll give you, you can even shut your camera off or whatever if that makes you feel more comfortable as you think and write. And we'll just give you till, I don't know, maybe 3 minutes, 4 minutes. Okay. Okay, we'll just give you about another minute or so to wrap up your thoughts before we come back together. All right, how are we all doing? Anybody want to try to share the way that they maybe reframed any one of the statements using the strategies that we went over?
I
Okay,
tackled
Linda.
I tackled the last one here. Getting older is a struggle, and it is important that the younger generation help the elderly in their communities. So I just kind of reframed the struggle aspect and then the language, specifically elderly. I just said, there are many opportunities for intergenerational support between younger and older community members. So, positive spin using that
Yes,
intergenerational verbiage,
I love that.
and then younger and older community members, which is pretty inclusive.
Yeah,
Nice
yeah,
job.
great.
You got one in chat.
Awesome.
There's one
Yep.
in chat.
Linda in the chat says, it is okay. This one must be the first one. So the reframe is it's helpful for all of us to plan ahead and get our affairs in order for financial wellness and aging. Love it. That is great. Avoiding using that othering. Love it.
Anita?
Yeah, I also did, well, I did all three, but the third one, to piggyback on what Philip said, I incorporated a quote from Mother Teresa, but I said, life can be challenging and we need to support one another along the way. The quote is, we belong to each other.
Oh, very nice.
I love that too. Great.
Kathy writes, as
Thank you.
more of us live longer lives, our communities can plan proactively to ensure we all have access to services and support that promote health and well-being. Very good.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
So when we did this presentation in Grand Rapids, the audience was like, gosh, these statements are so dreary and negative. Did any of you have a similar reaction that, wow, these sound really negative? James writes, it's important to expand our resources that support healthy aging and active lifestyles within our communities. Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. Yep. I was going to say, does anybody want to do the second one? Thank you, James. Should we move on and would share what the reframed statements that we came up with, or I think reframing came up with? So the first one is planning ahead and keeping our affairs in order ensures we can age safely. The second one reframed is our communities are growing older and we need resources to support us as we age. And then the third one reframed is as we get older, we can expect to go through some loss and need help. So I actually love a lot of your examples, even more so than these.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, perfect. I'm glad that we all got the opportunity to do this because we didn't get the chance to do this in person. I think.
Yep.
One of the downfalls of virtual is that you don't get into such rich discussion. I think we had a lot of rich discussion throughout, but we also had the opportunity now to practice, which is great. So we will just move on to a review and like thinking of ways that you can reframe aging. These were some ideas that we came up with. Aligning programs and scripts with the recommendations and the communication strategies around reframing aging. Using effective strategies in written and oral communication. Applying the communication techniques to professional writing and grant proposals. Ensuring your marketing reflects a balanced view of aging, and then defining target audiences for education and outreach. So an example of that would be like caregivers or empty nesters. How are some ways that you all could see yourself reframing in your own work, in your communities? Or if you've been doing this work, where have you been reframing?
Well, something additional, since I was talking about the 100 days, actually sending the toolkit to the schools, at this extension saying, hey, part of my mission, I work with the aging population. And again, we have good relationships, just saying, hey, this is a resource that I think you might find helpful, like being more proactive with it.
Mhm. Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Tessa.
Do we have any concern about sharing our slides? No, I don't think so. So if you
I don't
want
think
our
so.
slides, put your email in chat and we'll collect them and we can send them to you.
Is the training that you mentioned at the beginning still available or available to others or?
It is absolutely 100%. I can, let me see if I can,
No,
get
so
the,
I could try to find it quick.
I don't know how much it costs now. Costs we perceived as a barrier for folks. It was 550 a piece for us when we did it. So we definitely perceived that as a cost. So here is reframingaging.org. Oh,
Yep, I put the tools and the resources in there for reframing, and that I think has like their learning center. They do have online videos now that are available and some different guides, but I think it is still Wisconsin, our Department of Health Services is actually contracted with Reframing Aging to do some statewide trainings. I don't know where they came up with the money, if it was a grant, but yeah, that was something we talked about, why we kind of put these materials together to support extension folks, recognizing that maybe the full training is a little bit of a barrier cost wise for people to go through.
and we do feel like we kind of focus on the needs of extension folks a little bit more. That I don't mean to be critical, but it was a little bit of a policy advocacy bent to the training. Yeah. And, we have to be careful about, lobbying legislators and that stuff. So some of the training is really about that. I would say it's worth it. I enjoyed it. I think it helped me. But I feel like for the purpose of extension professionals, we liked the idea of creating this content. And as I said at the beginning, we talk a little bit more about facts on aging because that knowledge gap is pretty widespread.
Yep.
Most people do not understand aging. Or their role and how they age. So that's why we feel like offering that content is valuable. Thank you, everybody, for putting your emails. I will send the slides. We're going to go forward because we're getting close to the end.
Yeah. Evaluation and next steps. So if you want to scan the code, I think we also have the link to post in the chat.
This is so there's two. We are going to ask you to do two real quick. So we're going to ask you to scan this one.
Okay, thank you, Molly. This is our regular NCRAN, the first one that Molly just put in the chat, which is not the same as this one. This one is
our research team, our project
research team, yeah, which
Yeah,
includes Molly.
Yes. We are trying to build a little bit of evidence base for these materials. No, you're fine, Molly. So we are asking, please take a minute. So we're going to be quiet. We're going to offer you 3 minutes to do this, real quick, maybe 5. We will send you the
I'll get this
slides.
link. Whoops. Here is the link if you don't want to scan this one that's on the screen right here.
Okay. We hope you had enough time to do that one. Maybe if you didn't, open a new browser for us or
I'm just
um,
going to add
go ahead.
quickly, see that
Yep.
we will send out a follow-up in a few months to all of you that gave us your emails just to see how you've used them. And if you've used the tools yet and if there were any barriers. We would like, we're doing that with the in-person group that we presented to at NEAFCS. So we'd like to just kind of do that with this group too. If anybody is really opposed to getting a follow-up survey in a few months, just you can private message me and I'll make sure you don't get the follow-up. Okay. Thank you.
These materials really, while we focus on extension today, these materials really are applicable to any professional who works with older adults. We tried to make them general enough that if, you wanted to do some professional development with maybe a board that you're on, you could take these materials and use them to provide some education. And they're flexible, they're flexible tools. You could send them out in advance, ask people to read them before they come, and then do a presentation. It's really up to you and how you want to teach. Oh, Becky.
This has been so, so valuable. I really, really appreciate the training. And I have to tell you that it um, is making me more aware of how I even speak about myself. Um, because I'm aware of making comments about the fact that I have gray hair, or when I'm at the gym and I don't lift the kind of weights that, the 20 something does. Um, it's almost like by calling it out, or drawing attention to it, I'm saying what I think other people are already thinking. And I need to stop doing that. And
Yes.
so I really appreciate, I really appreciate this training.
Your gray hair is fabulous. I want to have great gray hair. I don't think I'm going to have great gray hair. And while people are working on the eval, any other comments, questions? Meta had a comment. So Meta wrote, let me go back up to that.
Yeah.
And Meta wrote, I was thinking it may be good to reach out to school counselors for the 100 days activities. They may be in a better place to teach about ageism to students and staff. And that's a great suggestion.
Mm-hmm.
That's a toolkit. That toolkit that Reframing Aging made could easily be shared. And that's a small thing that we could do just to help our young people. Because really, our young people, they learn about aging as children, and that can set the stage for how they experience it later. There is a lesson I will highlight. There is a youth and science lesson in these materials. I provided this training for women in science events here in Rapid City for years. And it really kind of is a gerontology 101, aging 101 course. It's in the links that we provided, which I can drop that in chat again in case you logged on after the last time. But that lesson is really great because if we can teach younger people to think differently about aging in the 7th grade, how much is that going to help them in the future? So if you ever do those women in science type events or youth in science type events, you could take that discussion outline. It's meant to be very interactive, very fast paced. You ask questions and the kids just pepper you with answers, but it does give those kids an opportunity. What I love about that lesson is there is a writing or drawing prompt that asks those 7th grade kids to envision who they want to be when they're 65. And many of them have never thought about that before. They've never thought about what age is before, and it's interesting to hear their answers. So it's a great little lesson that is free to use as well.
Yeah, Lacey, I've even been exploring opportunities to use this education with youth as they're gearing up to do some intergenerational programming, just to help sort of build a foundation and break down some of those stereotypes so that they can build positive relationships with older people, and maybe see them more positively than maybe before if they didn't have the ageism or even an understanding of aging education. So Lots of
And
ways to use this stuff with youth too, I think.
And the research really highlights the need to provide education across the lifespan about facts on aging and ageism. It's just, in this country in particular, it's just pretty poor on how that education works to teach people about a very important part of life. I mean, adult development and aging is huge. Any comments? Any other comments? We've got 6 minutes left. We did want to leave time for the evaluation. So thank you for everyone who filled out our evaluation and then our research survey. We will send, hopefully I'll double check, make sure I got all the email addresses out of chat. We'll send you our slides. We'll follow up with you in a few months. Hopefully get some feedback on whether or not you've used the materials.
Yes, we can open it up for questions, or if you just want to share maybe how you're doing some work in your state.
Well, I can add to this discussion. My name is Rebecca. I'm from Purdue University Cooperative Extension. And where I'm at, we are working on providing digital literacy skills. I'm a part of a team that's developing that programming. And we have a whole unit dedicated with, where we have licensed up with Senior Planet from OAT to AARP. And so this presentation is fantastic because I think my goal is to share it back to our internal team and remind folks as we go forward and as we work with our adults who are older, this is information that will, I think, be really useful. So that's one way that I plan to incorporate this going forward.
Thanks, Rebecca. A stat I like to highlight is 1 in 6 adult is smartphone dependent. And that I should have put this chart somewhere, but Pew Research has an excellent chart that really breaks it down, the demographics of who's who. And what may surprise you, it's younger people with lower educational levels who are more likely to be smartphone dependent. So I think digital literacy is such an interesting topic. You know, it used to be that older adults were more disconnected to the digital world, and that's becoming less true as the boomers age. I mean, because they had technology. So understanding the nuances of who's online and who's not is critical for us as we try to do digital literacy work. Was there someone else? I thought I heard someone else try to talk. Anita?
I have a question. So I do some work with grandfamilies, so grandparents raising grandchildren. So in doing trainings or in working with that population, do you have any suggestions for, I mean, being a grandparent defines the relationship. I mean, grandparents can come of all ages, right?
Yeah.
But ways to avoid, I mean, to speak about the reality of grandfamilies and grandparents raising grandchildren without focusing on or emphasizing that,
It's hard. I
these
mean,
are older, yeah.
If they're older adults, they may be facing more health complications. They may actually be on a fixed income. So how do you talk about those realities without sounding like, oh my gosh, all grandparents are miserable and poor, and that's
right.
And that is the challenge. You might have to do some reframing aging practice, like just write out some statements about how you would express what grandparents are going through. Because I'm not an expert on grandparents. I'll admit that one. But that may be what you need to do. Just brainstorm out some statements and then look at our reframing tips and try to, like maybe this is an idea. None of us know when we might be called to raise our grandchildren. That's a kind of a reframed way.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. You're welcome. You're welcome, Heather. Thank you everyone for being here. We got 2 minutes, so I'll be quiet and see if anybody else wants to unmute and talk.
Yeah, thank you all for coming.